Hello, you've reached Midnight Gardener. As usual, I'm low on time and storage on my phone, so I will be quick. I was going to tell you about making some beds. I was working on this little area over here, extending yet another bed, and I figured it was a perfect time to tell you about some little hints and tricks and whatnot. So, rule number one, slope and height. If you're up against a wall, then the wall should always be the highest point of the bed. It should never be lower than the edge. It should always slope at least slightly away from the structure. That way you keep water off the house. It's hard to tell because I'm actually standing at the bottom of a slope. All the water on your entire property and the slope of your entire property should work something like this. You have your house, which is built up and mounded up. Your house or a structure should be the highest point of that area, and water should go away, 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 and away from basically any structure. With mine, we have a large ditch over here just behind that big shrub right there. So if you have a ditch like that, everything is going to be sloped towards that ditch, or it should be. Now, there's also usually kind of secondary slopes. With my house, it slopes back this way where I'm standing with the camera. All the water comes down the driveway, out of the carport, it comes down this way. It comes to this area, which you can kind of see it where it's low, just behind these buildings, and so do theirs. All their water comes back this way, and then it's also even more downhill that way. So everything comes back here, and then it goes towards the ditch. So that's just something to think about. I was extending this little bed right here. So you always want the house to be the highest point. As you can see, it definitely is. It's hard to tell, but this bed is probably at least 8 inches above the ground. But I also have to think about, where does the water go for the whole property? So this end right here is also higher than that end down there, because all the water is going to go that way or this way. Now, when you get to this little area right here, this little extension, if I were to make this bed and bring it out all the way across, if I build it too high, all the water that comes from here when it rains will come back this way, and then it'll hit a mound. If the bed was here, just imagine. And then it will most likely get stuck on that mound, basically like a ridge somewhat, and then I'm gonna have trouble with drainage in a bed back here. So I can't really come all the way across unless I did not build the bed up so high. I just have to kind of be careful with it. Okay, so that's slope. The second thing I would tell you is if you are not up against a building and you are kind of out in the open like this little peninsula, then the center of that peninsula needs to be the highest point, never the lowest. All the water can hit the top of the hill, it can go out that way, it can come off this way, it can come off this way. All the water that comes from here can come here, and then it can go around, it can do whatever it wants. The water can still flow freely. As long as you don't build it to where the water gets stuck there. Sometimes what I will do, if I'm not sure about where the water's gonna go, I'll kind of just build a mound. You know, I won't really put anything there, and then I'll wait for either a heavy rain or I will just run a sprinkler back here and give it heavy water and just see where it pools up. And wherever it pools, I'll build that area up a little bit more. It's just kind of a way you can figure it out if you're not sure. The third thing is you always want to keep some kind of edge. It's hard to tell with this one, but this edge is much deeper than it looks. I usually keep an edge. I like to keep it at least about 1.5 inches to maybe 2 inches. You can do this with a weed eater. You do not need an edger. You just turn the weed eater sideways and you just let it dig. You do that pretty much every time you mow if you want. Just keep the edge nice and clean. As you can see, it's about a finger length, which is good. If you make it too deep, if you make it any deeper than that, I've found, you know, sometimes above 2 inches, you know, 3-4 inches, water will get kind of trapped in there and it'll just hold water, which is also a problem. So just be careful with that. The reason you want to do this is mostly, for one, because it looks good. Second, because it will hold all your soil. It'll keep it from eroding, keep it from washing out, and obviously it looks better aesthetically. But I see this all the time, people who build beds and then they just kind of spray the area or spray the edges, and then the mulch just continuously falls out or gets washed out of the bed. Hard rains and hard storms are going to be your biggest washout issue. But like this, I kind of let this edge go for a while, and then the mulch started falling. Anytime it would rain hard, the mulch would come out the back of this right here because it's not deep enough. And this is the lowest point of this round bed right here. So it all wants to kind of just flow out the back. So you just gotta make the edge a little bit deeper and keep the mulch in. The hardest, if you use a landscaping fabric, which I'm always against unless you're using river rock. If you're using a landscaping fabric, it's going to be harder because the mulch just slides down the landscaping fabric. It doesn't really have any, it can't settle, it can't, you know, it can't, what do you call it? It can kind of hold on to itself and, you know, degrade and then or decompose and then, you know, kind of become the ground. If it's sitting on top of a fabric, it's just gonna slide away. I would never use a fabric for any reason. It's terrible for it. It causes just poor soil and funguses and just all kinds of stuff. So yeah, that would be the third thing, is just keep your edges. And as long as you're sloping away from anything that's not supposed to be wet, you mound up in the middle, keep your edges. And also any store-bought soil or sand or whatever, I've done a video on what I like to use. Always make sure that no matter what kind of soil you have, if you buy new soil, mix it in with whatever soil you have. It does not matter what it is. You can't have brand new soil just sitting on top of clay or sand or whatever. It's not gonna work. It really needs to be mixed in. And I usually don't dig more than maybe, I'd say 4 inches down to mix it in. And that's about it. As long as you do that, as long as your slopes are good, you got edges, you got zero landscape fabric, you mix in your soil, that's all you need. I mean, that's it. I gotta get out of here and hope this was helpful. Everyone have a good day. Thank you.